welcome to another episode of the Talking Balls, the snooker podcast. The weekly podcast comes out every Wednesday morning, and well, delighted really with the guests that we've got today, who we've got lined up. But I'm going to let my co-host just tell you a little bit more. So I'm Michael Wright, and Lee, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lee. Welcome aboard. Really looking forward to the chat today. We've got a great guest.
So our guest, well, we will introduce our guest, but our guest, just as a starter, really, somebody who you'll know very well if you're into your snooker. You'll know this chap, and I'm going to reel off a list of sports that this person has been involved in. If you're watching on the YouTube, you already know, but for the people on the audio, this will be a mystery to you. But anyway, so I've got written down sailing, biathlon, ski jumping, cross-country ski, snooker, London Marathon, the Great North Run, darts, question of sport, voiceover, athletics, boxing, bowls, rugby, and I'm sure there's more. But we are talking to Rob Walker. So big welcome to you, Rob. And how do you do all of that?
Yeah, good to chat to you guys. Hi, Mike. Hi, Lee. Well, you open your mouth and words come out, and you hope that you get more right than you do wrong. But yeah, it's a crazy life, isn't it? I've been fortunate enough to work in broadcasting since 1999, which, by the way, is exactly the same age and exactly the same month as my ancient BMW came to existence somewhere, I guess, in Germany before getting shipped over to the UK. I'm not really into fancy cars. We've got loads of stuff still left to do with our old house. So yeah, my career is the same age as the car I drive. I don't know whether the car's looking better than me or whether we're both looking like we're a bit faded and jaded, but somehow, touch wood, I keep making a living, and I'm grateful to be doing so.
Brilliant, and thanks, Rob. I mean, you're joining us here now just on the eve. We're recording this on the Monday, just on the eve of the UK Snooker Championships. So I guess you're somewhere on the way to York at the moment, or near York.
Yeah, I've just stopped for a sausage roll and a cup of tea. I'm in a car park that's empty. I don't know how many people use this service station, but anyway, the people inside were quite nice. Yeah, I've just come from a brilliant week at the Champ of Champs with ITV4, and just amazed really at the comprehensive victory that Judd produced over John Higgins. I really enjoyed the live interviews last night, particularly because I think they both spoke so graciously and so generously about each other, and I was really pleased that John Higgins wasn't too hard on himself, because of course he's lost two big finals leading into the Champ of Champs, the Northern Ireland and the English Open, against Mark Allen and Neil Robertson, respectively, having led and then lost in deciders. And I know after the English, he was sort of saying, well, I haven't got what it takes at this level anymore. But, if you saw the 6-1 victory over Ronnie and the way he dug himself back from 3-1 down against Yan Bingtao in Saturday's epic semi-final, which was so epic it finished on Sunday, that I think, the fatigue probably did play a factor yesterday in that final. But I'm really pleased that John is, coming back to some really good form. That's a special performance, to reach 3 major finals at this stage of a season is brilliant. But I also think Judd will be fired up after winning that. It's his first title since Gibraltar in March, and I think that could signal the beginning of some great form from Trump, which will also mean, from a journalistic point of view, that we have some fascinating toing and froing in terms of the battle for world number one between Judd and Mark Selby. So I think we're coming into a very special time of the season, and I really enjoyed the Champ of Champs. I've only been doing the ITV stuff for about 18 months, and so I'm at the service station, having finished one and just about to start another with a sausage roll.
Brilliant. We should have preempted this, really. We could have got you a bit of product placement, perhaps. I'm not going to name them, but there's a certain chain of bakeries that might have benefited from this, mightn't they?
Well, yeah, they might. Someone as low profile as me, they might have paid me all of 15p or given me one free sausage roll, but never mind.
And so you say there about the ITV experience working with a different broadcaster. I mean, do you see big differences in how because you're freelance, really, aren't you? A lot of what you work in, it's very much freelance. So you must get quite a good view of the different corporations, organizations, and how they do things.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting. What I've particularly noticed about ITV is what a really loyal, tight-knit group of people they are. I was saying to some of the ITV guys, actually, I think they're in a brilliant position. I get the impression that they've got more staff members than freelancers. And quite often when you work on big events, you're working predominantly with freelancers,
right,
which is fine. But when you work with a company where a big percentage of them are all working together on lots of different things, you get a real sense of cohesion. And I think that comes across on the ITV coverage. They're a very loyal, hard-working group of people. And look, my wife said to me years ago, she's got nothing to do with TV. I don't know how people make that work, where they've both got these kind of jobs that take them here, there, and everywhere. Especially if you've got young kids. I think the way it works for us is quite nice. My wife is definitely the anchor for the family, and I flit around and do a few bits and lark about and then come home. But my wife said to me ages ago when we first started dating, she said, "Look, I'm aware you work in TV." She always takes the mickey out of me, calls me the Z-lister. She said, "Look, all I'm ever interested in hearing about, did you have a nice time? Did you work with nice people? And was the sport you worked on exciting?" And if the answer, this is what she said to me, if the answer to all three of those questions is yes, I'm not interested in anything else. And I think the reason she said that is most people in TV are quite nice. You do come across some really good characters, but you are dealing in an environment where your ego can come into the equation. And I think it was just Becky's way of saying to me right at the embryonic stages of us starting up, look, don't, and I'm not like this anyway, but it was just a real kind of, listen, don't start bringing this. Why is he doing this and I'm not doing that? Why is so-and-so on screen? Why is X getting paid this and I'm getting paid Y? She just reiterated right at the start, I'm not hanging around if that's how it's going to work. So I've kind of really adopted that attitude, to be honest, that sometimes you've got to keep your mouth shut. And if you're earning enough money for your family and you're working with people you really get on with and respect and admire, and you're working on something that you've got a lot of time for, everything else is irrelevant.
And Rob, it really comes across when you're doing your work, and whatever that is, whatever sport you're covering, it really comes across your enthusiasm. You must love what you do. Yeah,
I really do. And I think I love going in and talking to schools, and undergrads if they're starting out in broadcasting, because it is a precarious, bonkers industry in which to try and make a living, even on a sort of low profile level like mine. But I think it's really important that if you do nothing else, you have to mean what you say. Because again, just using Becky as an example, we don't watch much TV, but if we're occasionally watching something, she'll say to me, that isn't genuine. She might not have an expertise in the subject that the person she's watching has, but I think audiences are incredibly perceptive about whether you believe what you say. That doesn't mean they're going to like your style. And listen, I get slagged off here and there, but I've got a skin as thick as a rhino. I engage with social media a bit, but I can absolutely take it or leave it. If I didn't do a job in TV, I wouldn't have any social media accounts whatsoever. I'm not belittling social media, but when you look at young people, teenagers and girls in particular, where, there's such questions put on what they look like. And you see young girls, out and about taking taking selfies and so on, and they'll be retaking the shot about 6 times because they're checking what it looks like. So society's put that pressure upon them. But, you're not going to please everybody. But the one thing that I would like for people, if they kind of watch something and I'm in it, they might go, oh, he's a bit ugly, the size of his nose, or oh, I can't stand that guy, he's really cheesy. But what I'd really like is if there's always a but on the end of their comment, not that I'd ever hear it, and they go, but he does look like he cares about what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And obviously, Rob, as well, you know, we see you in the public see just talking to camera, but there's a lot of work having to build the crowd up. You warm the crowd up. Do you have a set routine? Maybe gags that you say, or is it just off the top of your head?
Well, not really. I mean, you're talking, you know, preparation. There's a saying in TV, proper planning and preparation prevents poor performance. And actually, that's the 6P version. The 7P version inserts a slightly dodgy swear word, which I won't repeat. There's no shortcut. You know, when you're commentating, and I'm starting to do more commentating on snooker, which I love. And if you are a snooker fan, you will be aware that I never, ever encroach on commenting technically about the players' shots, because I have been involved in snooker for 15 years, but I do not have that in-depth level of technical knowledge where I can criticize a specific shot. Yeah. But what I can do from a commentary point of view is talk about them as people, because I know them, I trust them. I've had many things that different players have said to me away from an interview environment, never said a word of it to anybody. Yeah. If somebody tells me something in confidence, it stays in confidence. And that's not because I'm actively hoping that they trust me. That's just good manners. That's how you should behave as a human being. And I think by accident, I've ended up building up quite good rapport with a lot of people because they absolutely know I'm never going to break a confidence. Yeah. But anyway, so, you know, I'm always thinking about what nuggets I can tell people about a player, not personal off the record stuff, just little bits and bobs where people might go, I'm really interested in that player now. I'm going to keep half an eye on him. So with commentary, you do a lot of homework, and I'm trying to paint a picture of what the bloke is like. Yeah. So that people who are tuning in and they're only interested in Ronnie or Ding or Robertson, you know, Michael Holt, and then you go, you know, he's a real philosopher, and he's done this and he's done that, and the shootout meant a lot to him, and you know, he's got a family now. And anyway, so on that side, you do loads of prep. Yeah. In terms of warming up the crowd, I mean, look, I feel sorry for people who sit in the audience doing sort of, say, 5 sessions over the course of a week, because the nature of that role is unbelievably repetitive. You're basically going, hi there, there's a good audience, and there's 2 tables, and there's 4 great players, 2 of them are going to win. So I do sit, I don't feel like that. I've got excitement about it, but from the kind of curmudgeon's point of view, they're sitting there going, oh, here we go again. So I don't tend to tell jokes, but what I do, because I'm more of a journalist than an MC, I just explain, I give them the salient points of why I think we should all care about the match. You know, for instance, when I was talking to Ken yesterday, when we did a little 2-way thing on the balcony next to John and Judd, I said, we've got compelling arguments here from both players wanting to win this, because Judd's trying to make it 3rd time lucky, having lost to El Roquito in 14 and then lost that incredible decider to Neil Robertson in 2019. So he's trying to go 3rd time lucky on one of the only big events he's never won. And John Higgins is trying to avoid losing 3 successive finals in a single season. Yeah. And that's never happened to him before. So it's things like that. You know, you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're trying to give people the journalistic headlines. Yeah. And also, you know, if it's at the Crucible and you have got a real rock star on one side of the arena, it's your job to make sure that you remind people how important the occasion is for the 3 that they're not that bothered about. Yeah. Yeah. And I always say to them, look, if you're here to see, you know, if you're a massive Neil Robertson fan, that's brilliant. And I talk about, you know, the great, you know, in his case, coming over from Australia and all the great things he's done, and how much time he puts in with Alexander, who's a brilliant goalkeeper and all that. I said, that's Robbo. So that's great that you care about Robbo. but let me remind you of the journey that this guy's been on.
Yeah.
And he's done that, and he's done this, and this is massive for him. And of course, he's the underdog against Neil Robertson. But funny things happen at the Crucible. People can come back from da. So I think that's the main bit of the role, is to remind people of the big achievements that these players have produced, and to make sure that all of the people you're introducing get a big reception, not just the rock stars.
Yeah. And you touched on your commentary there, Rob. Obviously, with your lack of wanting to get involved in the technical side and calling shots and stuff, I'm guessing maybe you're not much of a player, or are you?
No. I played a lot when I was a kid with my dad. I grew up in a little town called Abingdon, just outside Oxford.
Oh, yeah.
And I've always found I never got any coaching. I find it quite difficult to relax. Running and watching films, and weirdly playing snooker or pool. So I never bothered getting any coaching, but my dad and I used to go down to this leisure centre, the old jail. It was on the site of what was the jail in the town many years ago. And we just paid for a couple of hours on the snooker table. And I had one of those little tiny Steve Davis tables at home. Because remember, I'm probably a lot older than you guys. I was born in the mid-70s. I'm exactly the same age as Higgins, Ronnie and Willow. Exactly the same age.
Well, I tell you what, this camera must be telling terrible lies then, because I think we're all around the same, aren't we?
Right, okay. Well, I haven't got my glasses on, but anyway, so I was watching snooker in the mid-80s when it was huge. And then when I went to university, I went to Exeter, and one of my best mates from uni is also a big snooker fan, and we used to hire the table in one of the a bit bigger than a sort of dormitory. There was a bar and a leisure area called Cornwall House, and you could hire. The table was awful, but so were we. But we'd hire that table on a Wednesday when I wasn't away running with the cross country club, and we'd have 2 or 3 pints, and we just knock the balls about, and we'd have a rubbish break of 15 or whatever. But so I've always associated playing snooker with just relaxing. I never took it down the route of getting coaching. I think it's an incredibly, at a very base participation level, it's incredibly sociable. And if you're not desperately trying to rack up a 75, it's very relaxing.
Yeah, it's more the athletics you've gone down, isn't it? The running side of things. I mean, you won some titles a bit further back.
As a participant, the only thing I was ever good at was running. And I still run now. It's where I feel most comfortable. And other than when I'm broadcasting live, especially commentating, at no time do I feel as alive than when I am in motion running. Which sounds a bit kind of spiritual or whatever. It's not meant to. It's just, if I look at a field, if I'm driving and I look at a field, hang on, I just want to, someone's trying to send me a message, sorry. If I'm looking at a field, or I can see a footpath when I'm driving, all I'm thinking is, apart from looking at the road, I'm thinking, that would be a great little 10 minutes there. So it's kind of weird. I'm always sort of subconsciously, if I see an open space, I want to run it. I've always loved running. I was county champion in Oxfordshire. I was county champion at 1500 and cross country. I only won 1 title on the track, but I really enjoyed cross country, and I had a couple of county titles, but I couldn't make that jump. I wasn't good enough to make that jump from county to country. And at a very young age, the initial thing that attracted me to broadcasting, I wanted to commentate on the 1500 meters at the Olympic Games. That, when I was a kid, that is the very reason I wanted to work in TV, because I watched the Olympic Games in 1984, then it's weird, isn't it? I watched the Olympics in '84, Cohen Cram. My mum woke me up in the middle of the night so I could watch Cohen Cram race for the 15.
Was it LA '84, Rob?
Yeah,
LA?
it was. Yeah. And then the following year, I was allowed to watch Dennis and Steve, and then it's just so bizarre. I sometimes pinch myself to think, 35, 36 years ago, I watched those two events, and almost 4 decades later, I'm predominantly making my living in those two sports, doing the very thing that I hoped I would do at that age. So I've never forgotten how lucky I am to be in that position.
That's a great story, isn't it? And do you tend to take your kit with you? I know you've got the UK's coming up now in York. Have you got your running gear with you then?
I take it everywhere.
Yeah.
I take it everywhere. I mean, just before my knees tweaked at the moment, which is annoying, I wasn't able to run in Bolton at all, and I've been upping my mileage lately and getting quite fit again. I've got a few circuits I do at home, and I was putting some good times in, but I think I overdid it a bit, and I've tweaked my meniscus, which is this annoying little bit that joins two sections of your knee together that starts rubbing when you get older if you're unlucky. But yeah, before I went to Bolton, I said to my wife, "Oh, do you mind if there's this beautiful little shepherd's hut, can accommodate 3 people." My wife and son and I have been down there a few times to Dorset, and I took Arthur to Yorkshire for a boys' holiday for half term. We love it up there, absolutely brilliant. Just me and him. Give my wife a week off because I was away. I think of his 8 weeks in the summer holidays. I think I saw him for 5 days. Yeah, because of the Olympics, Paralympics, and the British Open for ITV. So I said to Becky, I want to take Arthur up to Yorkshire, which it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I love Yorkshire. Anyway, so after that week, I said to her, look, I thought, I've earned some brownie points here. She's had a total week off. I said, look, do you mind if I take the dog down to the shepherd's hut? So I went down to Dorset, and this is a perfect, once I've spent loads of time with my wife and son, this is the perfect thing for me, right? I went for an 8-mile run every morning. I was only down there for 4 days. Went for an 8-mile run every morning, somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. Sit on the balcony of this shepherd's hut, a few cups of tea, some toast, cereal. Take Paddington down to the nearest coast. Walk 7 or 8 miles with Paddy. Come back, have lunch, watch a film on my iPad in the afternoon, drive to a local pub, have my dinner, go back, go to bed. Brilliant. And I did that for 4 days. And that's that, other than spending time with my wife and son, that's my chill out time. I'm ticking every box: running, walking with the dog, pub dinner, and a film in the afternoon. So I am ready to go, man, for this big chunk of work leading to Christmas. I'm ready to go.
What's your favourite films? What kind of things you're into?
I'm into really. I love films that inspire. And I love watching Tom Hanks. I think he's so good. But I mean, in no particular order, in my top 10. This is so difficult. Chariots of Fire, because again, that just brilliantly encapsulates how you feel when you think you're going to win and you lose. In the case of Harold, the character Harold Abraham. Gladiator. Yeah. I loved. There's so many. Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman and George Kennedy. Absolutely brilliant film. And then Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The on-screen chemistry between Newman and Redford is absolutely spellbinding. What other films? Papillon, not the new one, the real Papillon. With Dustin Hoffman and Steve McQueen. I just absolutely love films like that, and I also enjoy films about true stories. These great figures from history. Having their achievements brought to life. There was that brilliant film about the three black women who were basically world-leading mathematicians, and they were they were in that film with Kevin. I forget the title of it. Brilliant! What a story! I mean, 3 absolutely incredible women with amazing perceptions of maths, stories like that are fantastic, because you've watched a film like that, you feel like you're going to conquer the world.
It seems from what you're saying that, you know, relationship building and just your interest in humanity is really big. And I noticed that, kind of looking, you know, before meeting up, that positivity that Lee picked up on, and that almost seize the day mentality, the carpe diem. You mentioned on your website about an incident back in 2005 in Glasgow, which kind of maybe helped to shape that view of life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, shit. I don't talk about that very often. No one's asked me about that for ages. Yeah, that was quite strange. I mean, basically, I was working as a staff member at the BBC at the time, and there was an international athletics meet. It was something like a Britain against America in Glasgow. My dad's from Glasgow,
right?
One of my favourite cities in the world.
Yeah.
You've never been to Glasgow, you've got to go there. It's just the banter and the energy of the people. They did such a good job with the Com Games in 2014 as well. Yeah. I love the fact that Usain Bolt was conducting the crowd in Hampden to do 500 miles. Anyway, 2001 of millions of great memories. 2005, yeah. So I was up there for this race, for this meeting, and I went for a run, and it was the day that Ricky Hatton fought Costa Zoo.
Oh yeah,
and that was a brilliant night for Hatton. Anyway, so all the other guys were getting ready. I think the meet was on the Sunday, and this was on the Saturday. So I went down by the Clyde for this run, and as I was coming back, I heard this commotion. I was quite near a bridge. I mean, I know Glasgow reasonably well, but not like intimately. So I thought, oh, that sounds a bit strange. Sounded like a shout or a scream or something as I got up to this bridge, or as I was running past it. I wasn't due to run over it. And then I see this guy. I saw this bloke running towards me. So the first thing I thought was, because I'd heard what I thought was like a scream or something, I thought, oh, he might have just attacked someone. Yeah. So I thought he'd robbed someone of a wallet or something, and he's running towards me.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, I mean, it's so ludicrous. Yeah, I'm 6'3", 11 stone. People could flick their little finger at me and I'd probably fall over. I put my arms out as if to try and stop him. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking about. Anyway, as he got closer to me, I could tell that he wasn't being aggressive. Like there was it was some other emotion that was. It felt more like he was upset than being aggressive. So it caught me off guard. And then I saw this. There was a guy there, and another bloke. So this guy's running towards me. There was another fella who said to me something like, "There's someone in the water." This guy's name was Nick, and his girlfriend was called Minty. I keep meaning to try and find them. Actually, they weren't from Glasgow. They were up there having a day out or something. Yeah. Anyway, so this guy said to me, this bloke whose name turned out to be Nick, said, "There's someone in the water." So initially, I panicked. I looked around for. There was a like a lockkeeper's house or something nearby. So I'm running up there, looking for a what do you call it? A life buoy, but there wasn't one. Yeah. And then I thought, well, this is bloody ridiculous. Whoever it is could have drowned. I need to stop pissing about and get in the water. So I jumped over this wall and I went down to the shore and I saw this guy, Nick. And I saw what I thought was a mannequin. It was really weird, like, because your parameters of reality have to change so quickly in a situation like that. I'm just jogging back to the hotel, you know, kind of getting ready to, you know, go out and watch Ricky Hatton and Costa Zoo, thinking about whether I'm going to have a burger or a pizza. And then the next thing, you jumped in a river trying to save some woman's life. Anyway, so this guy, Nick, who was in the water, he was quite a lot shorter than me, and he was out of his depth. Right. And the one thing you've got to remember, you can lose your energy so quickly in cold water, so quickly. It doesn't matter whether you're a good swimmer or not. If you get cold, you can be in a dangerous position very, very quickly. Yeah. Even though it was summer, that water was cold. Anyway, so he's in the water trying to pull. He did more of the rescue than me. because by the time I got in the water, he was already trying to get back towards the bank with what turned out to be this old woman. So I got in the water and I could stand. So I said to him, look, I'll take her. I'll take her. You got to get yourself out. I could see he wasn't going to drown.
Yeah.
But I'm cradling this really old woman in my arms, in waist deep in this really dirty, muddy water. And then I thought, well, I've got to get her out. But this guy, Nick, was so exhausted. It was all he could do to drag himself up the bank. And then his wife or girlfriend, Minty, called for the ambulance. So I don't know how I did it. I somehow sort of going down onto the bank was really muddy and very slippy. So I somehow sort of, by, I guess, shuffling, moving each knee forward bit by bit, I managed to get her up just about out of the water. Then I got out and I dragged her up the bank a bit to a slightly flatter piece of ground. And then I gave her mouth to mouth. Like I was doing the breathing. Yeah. Apparently now you don't need to do that. I was doing the breathing. And then Nick, I think, was doing compressions. I should try and find the guy actually, because I remember I can remember this like it was yesterday, even though I never talk about it. Yeah. So I was giving her mouth to mouth. I've missed a bit out. Someone said, "Oh, put her in the recovery position." So it's quite interesting when you find yourself in pressure situations. Yeah. People start telling you what to do, and you start doing it blindly. Yeah. So I can't even remember who it was. Somebody said, "I'll put her in the recovery position." So I put her in the recovery position. I was covered in mud at this point. And then I said, well, there's no point in putting her in the recovery position if she's not breathing. So I pulled her back over. I went down and I couldn't feel any breath on my cheek. Yeah. And I couldn't feel any pulse either. So I said, look, we'll have to give her mouth to mouth. So I think this woman had got, the ambulance guy was on the phone at this, or somebody from the call center was on the phone. I said, oh, can you remind me how many breaths you do to pumps for the chest? So I was doing the mouth to mouth, and there was I had heartburn for a week after that, and I never get heartburn. There was loads of water coming out of her mouth. Right. Like when I was breathing, when I was pushing my breath in to her, I could feel water coming out into my mouth. And you could feel like when you were doing, Nick and I shared the compressions, and you could feel, it felt sort of like almost squelchy a bit, where, say if you've got a trainer and water gets logged in the sock, it felt like that. Like you're like, God, there's so much water. We've got to get it out. So much water. Anyway, so it felt like ages. And that's the other thing. If ever you have to give someone mouth to mouth, you're willing. I knew nothing about the woman, but humans are just very instinctive creatures. All you want to do, you're presented with this situation. You do, right, it doesn't matter what's going on with this woman. We got to try and get her to breathe. And you're willing. I was willing that woman to come back to life. And then the sun was turning up, and he was getting. The guy who was screaming turned out to have been her son. Right. And it turns out she jumped off the bridge. Oh, gosh. I didn't know that at the time because I got there at the very moment she hit the water. So the woman's son was jumping around, and he was really obviously was distraught at what was going on. And I said to him, there's all these people crowding around. I told them, I said, look, get back. Yeah. I think I said to him, who the F are you? Because he's jumping around all over the place. I thought he was just some morbid bystander. And when I realized that he was this woman's, I think her name might have been Sadie, I think. I said to him, talk to your mum. Yeah. Talk to her. She's in there. So I'm saying this to him whilst I'm doing the thing and the breathing. I'm saying, you've got to talk to her. Like if we've got any chance, if she's in there, she might hear you. You've got to keep talking to her. And so then a little while afterwards, a policeman came. I turned round and I was vaguely aware that this guy, Nick's partner, Minty, said, oh, there's emergency service people here. First of all, the policeman came. So I said to him, look, you take over from Nick, you do the compressions and I'll carry on doing, I'll carry on. I'm the only one that's done mouth to mouth. So it's pointless you getting involved with that. There's no, you might as well only have one person doing that in case there's dirty water or, whatever. Yeah. So the policeman was doing the chest pumps for a bit, and then Nick and his partner Minty were sort of guiding the emergency services through. And then after a while, then someone, a proper medic, jumped over this wall where I had jumped over to get into the water initially. And then the medic took over, and I stood up. I was cold at this point, and I was quite freaked out. But only afterwards, you say, right, well, it doesn't matter. My parameters of reality have changed here, but my number one goal is to try and get this bloody woman to start breathing. And then it was only when the paramedic took over, I was in a daze, and I turned round, and this bridge from which she had jumped was packed with people, all looking. Yeah, some with phones. You've got to remember it was 05, so back then I don't think people really had cameras on the phones. But so I just stood there and I couldn't believe it. I thought, what are they doing? Yeah. And I realized in that moment that there are people who stand around and gawp, and there are people who get off their asses, roll up their sleeves, see a situation and go, I'm tackling that and I'm going to do my best. And it just made me realize I probably already was that kind of person anyway. Yeah. But I just thought, bollocks to this. Life's too short. Yeah. Like, you've got to get out there and carpe diem. Yeah. So it wasn't a complete revelation. I was probably already like that anyway, but it absolutely rubber stamped that there's no point in standing around moaning about life. Yeah, you've got to get off your backside. If you want to change something, you've got to get off your backside and do something about it. It's not up to someone else. It's up to you. Yeah. Don't stand there as a bystander. Get involved. So, it was, I haven't spoken about, I don't have any, I don't need to go for counselling over it. I was shaken up by it at the time and it was weird. And I had trouble sleeping for that night and I had heartburn for a week. But I just thought, well, at any given moment, the parameters of reality can change instantly and dramatically. And you've got to be prepared to just roll with it and go, right, okay, this is not ideal, but what can we do to try and make this situation better? Yeah. No, and thanks for sharing that, Rob. It's and it's the fragility, isn't it? I guess it's that fragility of existence, really, isn't it? That what you're talking about in a way, and in another sense, quite metaphorical, really, but in another sense, you've just got to get on with stuff, haven't you, and do what you can. And I think we had Jason Ferguson on, and he kind of said at the end of his bit, he said that his saying was because we can, and he just said we do stuff because we can. Why not? Because we can. And I just thought that was really profound, really. It's almost like you don't have to keep finding reasons, or you don't have to justify things, just do things if you can do them. Have some fun, enjoy yourself. Yeah, because, you owe it to all the people who can't to get on with it. Yeah. And also there's another, you can, I'm not into kind of twee phrases. You get people go to life coaching and things, and that's cool. Yeah. I don't think you can change someone's philosophy with a sort of a clever turn of phrase. But a friend of my dad's, lovely guy, he's passed away now. He was really, really helpful to my dad when my dad was in business many years ago. He was very, very helpful at a time where things were financially quite perilous for my mum and dad. Anyway, he was a self-made man, and he told me he was taught by a teacher at his school. And this I do think is good, especially for children who might struggle with vocabulary.
Yeah.
He said to me, his teacher told him, if you want to sort of think about how you should approach life, if you're not very good with words, don't worry. He said, I've got 10 two-letter words. And this is so good because it's so simple. If it is to be, it is up to me.
Oh, I like it.
Brilliant.
I think that's brilliant because it just kind of, you're not going to wake up thinking about that every day. And you know, you're not reinventing the wheel with that expression, with that turn of phrase, but it's just such a brilliantly simple way of telling children and you know, I suppose youngsters at uni or whatever, get on with it. It's not up to someone else to open doors for you. You've got to do it.
Yeah. And indeed adults, but I guess so. Yeah. I mean, that's inspirational, really. I mean, it just sounds like, and in terms of kids, you know, I mean, the other thing I kind of picked up on doing a bit of background stuff was around young sporting wonders. And again, that sounded like something that, well, sounds like it comes from the heart. Some of the things that you do, really, you know, you're doing things that mean something to you, and you know, kind of nurturing and giving encouragement to youngsters as they're coming through. You've kind of talked about that a few times.
Yeah, I haven't really. Again, no one's really asked me about that. That's fine. Last Christmas, it was around about last Christmas time. I said to my dad, I said, look, there's a lot of people really struggling out there, and I tasted, you know, for the first time last March. I'm really careful with my money. You have to be, because some months you earn, you know, the equivalent of 3 or 4 months' money, and then there's a few months where you don't earn anything. So you have to spread it out. You can't spend it as if you earn that every month. You've got to balance it over the year. Anyway, last March, like loads of self-employed people, everything stopped. And I've because I am careful with money, I've got savings, but I went home after Llandudno was called off when we were there. I was driving back and I said to Becky, like, what if this lasts for 5 years? This is, you know, all my work is going to stop, and none of the contracts you sign meant anything because it's all an act of God. So it was as if someone turned the tap off instantly. And I was about to have the 7 busiest months of my career with Tokyo and all loads of other bits. Anyway, so fortuitously, it only lasted a few months, and amazingly, when snooker came back on June the 1st, ITV did that remote production brilliantly, where each of the people were from home. And then Neil Cox, brilliant guy, one of the senior producers at ITV, rang me and said, listen, we're doing this Championship League, but we haven't got anybody on the inside of the bubble. So for the Tour Champs, the one that Mags eventually won, beating Mark Allen in the final, and Judd on the way to the final, I think, with a brilliant performance. And they said to me, oh, can you go on the inside there? So that was nuts. So I went to Milton Keynes, myself and this brilliant cameraman called Kieran Startup. He's a freelancer. He does loads of stuff for ITV. And we spent this week in not going outdoors at all because it was a really strict bubble. Anyway, that signaled the start of loads of all my BBC snooker coming back and then doing all the ITV events. So we got to Christmas and I had taken a hit last year. You know, I'm not a bloody millionaire. And I because there was no Olympics, no Paralympics, there was a sailing thing I was supposed to do with Sunset and Vine and Whisper, and that was all off. So I did lose money last year, but nowhere near as much as I thought I would. And when I was driving back, if someone had said to me on that drive back from Llandudno, listen, you'll take a bit of a hit this year, but not much. I would have bitten their arm off. Anyway, so when we came to about last Christmas, I said to my dad, look, I can't believe what a lucky position I'm in here, that all my work's come back. I've had a great laugh. I've worked on some brilliant events and we're okay, you know, and there's so many people out there who are not. And we need to remind children, a lot of sports were halted at that time. So I said, I'm going to do something to try and help children remember why they love sport, sports that they might not be allowed to do at the moment. So I just came up with this idea called Young Sporting Wonders. And I said to my dad, look, I'm going to put up a grand of my my snooker wages. Will you match it? And I know I never asked the old boy for money. He's raised me to be. He's very generous, but he's raised me to be. I'm very independent. I never take money off my dad.
Yeah.
But I said to him, I said, right, you old git, you've got plenty of money. I want 1,000 quid. We're going to contact this local bookstore where we live, because she was closed. It was a nightmare for her. She does loads of stuff. This bookshop, Octavia's in Cirencester, she does loads of readings for children. She really tries to make engaging with reading fun.
Yeah.
And that's important for children, that they don't just regard reading as a chore. Anyway, so I rang Octavia, and I said, look, you don't know me from Adam, but my wife likes your bookshop. You know, I've heard you're really passionate about kids, and obviously your shop is closed.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy $2,000 worth of book tokens from you. I'll put $1,000 up. My dad will put $1,000 up, and I'm going to run a competition where children write in, and they write about a sport or a goal they scored or somebody they watched on TV, and I'm going to pick some winners. And I was kind of making the rest of it up as I went along. And then I really didn't know. I thought I could look like such a dick here, because I could put this out there and people would go, who the hell does this bloke think? Who the hell is this guy? And why is he? Anyway, so I did this piece to camera outside the bookshop. And I suppose, I know I've kind of slagged social media off. It was incredible. 250,000 people looked at it.
Wow.
250,000 people. And it went mad. I had I then had to think, right, I've got to get some proper sports people involved here. So I used to work on triathlon quite a lot, and might be again, actually. I'm waiting to find out about, someone's asked me to do some work.
Oh, cool.
They're considering whether they're going to use me next year. So I might get back into triathlon, which would be great. So I knew Alistair Brownlee, double Olympic champion, and I've worked with Paula a lot.
Yeah.
And I asked the two Marks, Mark Selby and Mark Williams, and I said, look, I've had this idea. I don't want any money from you.
Yeah.
But would you be a judge? And would you maybe would each of you be willing to do one interview with a winning kid?
Oh, good.
So anyway, so that's what we did. And then I started getting so many people sending me notes. I thought, shit, I can't use my personal email address for this, because this is what I use for work.
Yeah.
So I'm really not technical at all. I can use email, but building a website is way off my pay grade of knowledge and understanding of technology. So I then had to spend money getting a website built. Oh God, this is turning into such a ball ache. It was just supposed to be a bit of fun. Anyway, I had this website built. I put out the competition. I got probably 300 entries. Wow,
very cool.
From all over the country. And so I gave 100 20 quid book tokens out. And then I picked the top 4 or 5. The top 3 I gave an extra 50 quid each. So the top 3 got a 70 quid book token.
Yeah.
And I got the best ones. And the lovely little girl from a school in Loughborough, she did an interview with Paula, a young lad from New Zealand, weirdly, who was into triathlon. He got to do an interview with Brownlee. And then I got this young Welsh boy, brilliant secondary school, Mountain Ash Comprehensive in Cardiff. The RE teacher got in touch with me and said, oh, I'm really grateful you're doing this. And he said, look, I've got this young lad who's doing really well, and he comes from a very modest, humble background. There's more to it than that, but that's as politely as we can say it.
Yeah.
So he interviewed Willow, and then again, this lovely little girl from Derbyshire who liked rodeo. She liked watching rodeos in America with her dad, who was who rode horses or something. She did a bit with Selby, and I had them, and I had I paid for the interviews to be edited, so that they could see their interview. So
fantastic.
I mean, it's coming up to a year after that, and someone said to me, "You're going to do it again?" But I mean, I haven't really fully have time to think about that. But yeah, it was mad. People really went for it.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing, isn't it? And I suppose even if just a couple of them kids who applied or got to do the interviews pursue a career in that kind of field, and you've just given them that little bump along the road there to help them think about it, then that's been really worthwhile, hasn't it? It's been really nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's important. If your life's good, listen. My mum and dad are as working class as they come. Right, my dad grew up in a scheme in Glasgow. My mum grew up. There's a car alarm going off. It's not mine. No one would steal this anyway. It's too old. Yeah. So look, my dad grew up in a scheme in Glasgow. My mum grew up in a council flat in London, but that's not to say that they came from an impoverished background. It was more humble, and both their houses were full of love and affection. My granddad was a postman. I've got his, when he left, it's one of my prized possessions. Sadly, this is my mum's dad. He died before I was born, 18 months before I was born. And he spent all those years working as a postman in London. And when they retired back in the day, they got this parchment certificate, proper old school thing, with an actual signature on it from some big shot who probably sat in an office with cigars and, you know, massive oak, you know, boardroom. Anyway, this guy had signed this thing for my granddad, and I've had it framed, and it's in the. I've got an office at home, and my granddad's certificate of thanks for his 26 years of service to the post office after he came out of the Second World War is front, and the first thing you see when you walk into my office is my granddad's parchment. Anyway, so look, you know, the history of our family is as working class as they come. But my mum and dad met, they did well in business, and they poured every resource they had into me. So although I come from a very grounded perspective through my parents, I have led a privileged life. I went to one of the best public schools in the country. I went to one of the best universities in the country, and I spend my life traveling the world doing a job I love, working with people who inspire me and people who it is a joy to be around. So if life has dealt you that many cards, it is up to you. If you have got a good life and you're very happy in what you do and you're loved by people close to you, it is almost your obligation to put something back in and get off your ass and try and help people who weren't dealt those cards when they were kids. Because there's nothing, no one should feel guilty about the start that they have in life if it's a good start. But you do, what does come with that is a responsibility to try and contribute to your society and your environment. You shouldn't just be sitting there going, life's all right for me and isn't that wonderful? You can enjoy those things, but there's got to be something going back out the door as well. And I feel quite strongly about that.
No, that's a really good message. And I guess you said about inspiring, you know, and people who inspire you, and kind of going back to the snooker scene, really, I guess. I mean, who stands out for you? I don't know if you want to single people out, but in terms of players, and, you know, a lot of people who listen to this want to hear about the players. I mean, have you got particular, I'm not going to say favorites because that's probably unfair, but are there, you know, certain things that you like about some of the players and relate to? You've already talked about Willow and Mark Selby there.
I would say there are elements of all of them that I really like. I love spending time with Stephen Maguire. You know, some people just, you know, view him as a bit of a volcano, and yeah, you know, he does blow up occasionally when the table's going against him. But there's so many of those guys. I've got a lot of time for Mark Allen. I know he's dealing with a lot of stuff away from the table at the moment. I don't know what those issues are, and it's none of our business. But I sent him a message after he won the Northern Ireland Open. He didn't reply. I think he's dealing with a lot of stuff at the moment. And I sent him a note saying, you know, I'm so pleased for you. I said, you know, in terms of who you beat, where you beat him and how you beat him, I'd almost put that above the Masters. And the fact that you're probably dealing with some difficult things away from the table. I'm really looking forward to seeing you again on the circuit. And I told you I was really pleased for Mags, you know, when he won the Tour Championship, beating Mark in that final, because he's such a good player. If you're asking me about it, put it this way, I know people who are in schools, and they say to me, who would be good to come in and speak to children? Selby. Listen, that guy's humility, his strength of character, his resilience, and his determination to do his dad proud and to give Vicky and Sophia a nice life is incredible. They're all great guys. But, you know, I don't think the full story, I don't think Mark's full story has been told. And all I would say is, I am so proud to know somebody who has done so much with their life without getting in any way bitter about things that happened, without getting aggressive about how things have happened, or without turning to the bottle. So it's like, he and I laughed, you know, during the world final, when a few people booed him during one of those sessions. It was only a few wallies. We both laughed after that, because I spoke to him afterwards, and he's like, they don't realise, like, I totally understand that there's different favourites and whatever. It's water off a duck's back. They almost couldn't do that to a worse person, because you know, he'll just sit there and go, well, nothing I ever go through is going to be harder than that period around when my dad died. He is an incredible person, and I'm just so proud to have known someone like him, whose start in life was so very different to mine, and has gone on to achieve all that, and done it with, as I said, with grace, with humility, with determination. He's a great example for children. You know, you might be starting out here, but you can get to there. And then the other, you know, I know we've sort of mentioned Willow. Willow is so much more than just there's so much more to Willow than just a guy who sits around in a caravan doing bingo and winning a few tournaments. When he helped me with the book token thing, he was brilliant with the kids. And he was saying to me, I don't really know how to use Zoom, or we did, I can't remember whether we did Zoom or Teams or whatever, but one of the two. And we had to get Jo to set it up on her phone, so that we could film him talking to the lad in Cardiff. And he was brilliant. You know, I know he's got his idiosyncrasies, but I was really amazed. You know, he's got a great story to tell. You know, when he went down the pit with his father, and his dad arranged for him to go down the mine. When it was 1988, so he and I are the same age. So he would have been just turned 13. April 1988 it was. And he went down the pit, and he'll tell you himself, he's never been so frightened in his entire life. So, I mean, those aren't the only two that I really admire. You could ask me, you could mention 50 names to me, 40 or 50 names, and I would tell you things that I admire about all of them. I happen to pick out those two. And I think I just laugh when people sometimes slag off Mark for the way he sometimes plays the game. Sometimes, because you know, it's not all a, you know, a 5 hour, you know, 5 hour drudge match. It just makes me laugh, because I know he doesn't care about that criticism. And he's just doing his best for Sophia and Vicky. But yeah, listen, I genuinely, there aren't any players I don't like, because they've all been, you know, they've all been really good to me. They're trying to make their living in an extremely difficult sport where they're under a lot of pressure. They are, by and large, a group of proud, humble, hard-working men doing something they love under immense pressure,
Yeah.
trying to create a better life for their
Yeah.
wives and their children. So what is there not to admire about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say, Lee, isn't it? I mean, that's why we like doing this. You know, we're fans. Lee plays a bit. I don't. So he's got the technical stuff. But that's why we like doing this, isn't it? I think it's that bit of you get to know the players more as people and just through this. But as you say, really, you know, Mark Selby there. If you talk to the players about him, they're all full of respect, and it's all about that granite and that resolve he's got. And you think sometimes the fans maybe judge players differently than the players judge each other. That I found quite interesting. But
yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. You know, there'll be a massive amount of respect. And what's also funny is how different they are. I mean, look at say Neil Robertson. You know, the champ of champs. You know, Neil Robertson and Mark Williams. You couldn't get two more diametrically opposed characters. One's idea of a perfect meal would be sausage, beans, and chips, and about 5 pieces of white toast. And then the other is a vegan, you know, drinking, you know, I don't know, beetroot milkshakes and stuff like that. But they both really, really respect each other.
yeah,
You know, there is an underlying class. Isn't it ironic that people sometimes look down their nose at snooker and they say it's working class? But when you look at the sport and the examples of sportsmanship that permeates all levels of snooker, it's actually class.
Yeah.
Not working class.
Yeah.
It's class.
The true meaning of it. Yeah.
And it encourages fair play, honesty, endeavor. It is a great sport. It's so funny that people sometimes regard it as working class because it is just class. It's brilliant. And over the lockdown, my windows are getting steamed up. People are going to think I'm getting up to something in here. It's going to take me ages to clear this because the car's so old. But if I open the window, I won't be able to hear you. It's just so weird. Like over the last year, with all these bubbles, we've all been in the same hotel. Normally we're spread around. Some will be in a guest house, some will, you know, be out of town. So we've all been by necessity staying in the same hotels a lot more than we previously would have done. And every single time, when I went to the Qualies, for instance, we were staying in this, I can't remember the name of it, slightly further out in Sheffield, different hotel than the one we stay in for the World Championship, the 17 days. When I sat in a couple of times, I went down to breakfast on my own because I like to sort of clear my head before I'm doing a day's work and I start thinking about things I might say or whatever. Every single person, every single player and every single coach and every single official, when they were dealing with the girls who were bringing teas over or, I don't know, getting the cereal ready or whatever for breakfast, there was a please and a thank you on every sentence and every request. Now, that's basic, but that tells you something about the people who are operating in snooker. Excuse me, pardon me, please, and thank you. Every single one of them said that before they asked these girls for anything. So it's quite interesting when you work. You can tell a lot about someone by how they deal with staff in all those kind of service situations where you are the customer. Like, there's a way of talking to people and there's a way of not talking to people. And I think people can accidentally give you quite a good insight if they're quite rude or dismissive in those situations. That, to me, marks your card about someone. And you think, oh, okay, I'll make a note of that. But to a man, all of them were so polite to those staff. And when we go somewhere on these trips, all the people in the hotel say, oh, we're looking forward to having the snooker people back.
That's great.
What does that tell you about the people that we work with?
You talked about Mark Allen, Rob. Mark Allen's a classy act, you know. We were at a tournament in Northern Ireland. It was just an amateur tournament, and nations got together. And Mark was actually refereeing some of the games there, and he spoke to everybody, he gave autographs, and he was always saying please and thank you. The guy's just a class act.
I love Mark. He's a brilliant bloke. I was so pleased for him. I was sad for Kyron, but Kyron's time at the Masters will probably come. That victory, when his dad jumped onto the set and was hugging everyone, that was one of the best post-final situations I've ever seen. I thought it was absolutely superb. And he's one of the best break builders.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when you watch Mark, and I'd love him to get back to the single table setup at the Crucible as well, because he is just so good to watch.
Yeah.
If you watch Mark, then hopefully when he comes back, when he's down on the ball, his face goes, when he's about to unleash one of these massive breaks, his cheeks go red.
Yeah.
And I spoke to his dad about it, and his dad said to me, he said, look, because his dad watches everything he's in. His dad said to me, that's when something clicks in him.
Yeah.
And he says, when I'm watching on TV, when his cheeks go red, I know he's about to unleash a massive break. He's brilliant. I mean, it was such a shame. It was such a shame that he wasn't in a position to come and try and defend his Champion of Champions title.
Yeah.
He beat the world number 1, 2, and 3. He beat Judd, Robbo, and Ronnie. I mean, that was incredible. But I still think, with the background of whatever it is that's going on for him off the table, and the fact that I don't think he'd ever got past, I think he might have made one quarter-final in Belfast in the past. He's always said he's been a bag of nerves. A bit like, Maguire trying to win the Scottish. Not the Scottish when it's in Llandudno. I mean, the Scottish when it's in Scotland. That's kind of nuts, isn't it? The Scottish Open's going to be in Wales. Anyway, Celtic cousins and all that. So, I think coming back against John and managing to win in Belfast on home soil with a backdrop of difficult issues away from snooker, to me, that's his greatest triumph.
Yeah.
Amazing bloke. Amazing guy.
And Rob, do you ever get the chance to go on the road with the players, exhibitions? Your MC and obviously the players are doing exhibitions.
I've done a few bits. I did one with Jimmy and John Virgo a few years ago. I haven't done loads. Who else have I done one with? Steve Davis. I did one with Steve. And he was asked to go and open a he was asked to go and open a branch of an estate agent before the exhibition, which he willingly did. He was in his tracksuit trousers. It was so funny. And then the guy who owned the estate agent was stopping the traffic, and he was asking me to take pictures. It was so random. So yeah, I've done a few bits with these guys. And it's nice. It's nice when you can have a few pints and they're not under pressure. They're not under the pressure of the main table. But they've had some incredible adventures over the last 15 years. Absolutely incredible.
Dennis Taylor was always a big exhibition player, and he used to take the MC. You'll know him, Alan Hughes, on the road with him.
Yeah.
I
know.
Like a god in the MC world.
Yeah. I know he was a real character, Alan, and obviously very highly respected and did the job for a long time. It's probably lucky for me that he retired. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done the last 15 years. But good guy, Alan, and I'm sure he must have had a lot of fun, especially in those days where there were no phones, so therefore there were no cameras or microphones. It was all, what went on tour, stayed on tour, and I'm sure those old guys have got some good stories to tell. That's for certain.
I was playing Dennis in the exhibition, and Alan always brought the amateur players on for the exhibition. And the one he said to me, he was introducing me, and he says, it's such a shame he's let his girlfriend down to be here tonight to play Dennis, but he'll blow her back up when he gets home. But it was a classic.
Brilliant.
I was in stitches.
That's good. I like that. That is good. That is good.
Oh dear. Was there anything that you wanted to cover off before we go to our kind of quick fire round to, as we call it, clear the colours with with Rob?
I just had a couple of questions. It's actually from Noel Flannery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Noel sent in a question. You know, Noel works with Mark King and various other players on the mental side of the game. So Noel was asking if you've ever met Murray Walker and what was he like to work with if you have.
No, I'd love to have met Murray Walker. I was just reading his obituary not so long ago. What an incredible guy he was. I hadn't realised he came up with. Are you guys old enough to remember opal fruits?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who of our age is going to call them starbursts? They're always going to be opal fruits. Murray Walker. Murray, my windows, by the way, have literally steamed. I've got to get to York after this thing. I'm going to have to get a towel out or something. I don't know how I'm going to drive. Murray Walker came up with the marketing phrase, made to make your mouth water.
Really?
Did he really?
Yeah. He was some marketing big shot before he got into Formula One. Yeah. But no, I never met. Sorry, Noel. I never met Murray Walker, but obviously greatly admired his commentary, and I would have loved to have, bought him a pint and shaken his hand, and he would have gone, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah. I've just got one more question, Rob, and it's actually from my brother Andrew McCrone. He was asking, do you give the players their nicknames? I know you're responsible for some of them, and would you have any nicknames for the presenters if you were to give them one?
Put
you on the spot.
Presenters, well, no, because most of the guys, with the people I've just been working with, Neil and Ken and Stephen, Alan McManus, they've already got nicknames. Most of the nicknames were inherited. A few of them we changed. I think when I first started, Sean wanted to be the magician, so I said, "Yeah, that's cool," because he makes the balls disappear. The one, I think, Neil Robertson's was something like the Melbourne potting machine, which I said to him was rubbish.
Yeah.
And so we came up with I came up with the Thunder from Down Under.
Mm-hmm.
So I quite like that one.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think Neil's okay with that as well. Judd, neither he or I could come up with anything better than Ace in the Pack, but it's better than nothing. But no, most of them you just inherit. Mark King is so funny. What a run to the semis that was, by the way. Kind of showing that he's still got a bit of gas in the tank.
Yeah.
Mark's quite funny because I've tried Mark the Royal King, and then by and large he says to me, "Look, if I'm in a tournament, I don't give a blank what you call me, just as long as I'm still winning." And then I think I called him Kojak. Do you remember Kojak? Telly Savalas. I was calling him something. Snooker's equivalent of I think I did. He had a decent run at the UK a couple of years ago, and I introduced him as he was winning these matches. I introduced him as here he is. Snooker's answer to Telly Savalas. Who loves you, baby? Mark. And then I think he might have been. He may have beaten John Higgins, or he had a huge match, and he was getting tired and hungry, and somebody gave him a lollipop, which gave him a bit of a sugar rush. And obviously, Telly Savalas was famous for sucking lollipops amongst doing other things. So I was really keen on Mark Kojak King, but he was like, no. For one tournament alone, or I'll rip your head off. Some of them don't like nicknames, so they're just a bit of fun. But most I would say are inherited.
Yeah, brilliant.
I like El Roquito that you said earlier. I like that one. El Roquito.
Well, we just that's more in. I wouldn't call him that as an intro. He'd probably knock my block off. But no, sometimes we just refer to him as that in the press room, just because his name comes up all the time. So it's just boring to say the same name millions of times. So over time in the press room is someone will say, I don't know, oh, what time's El Roquito on? And it's just stuck, but only in the press room.
Yeah.
And then the other one, we've occasionally in the press room, we'll refer to John Higgins, "Oh, you know, where's the Higmeister?" So I just silly, you know. But no, I'd never use those. They're just terms we stumbled upon, you know. When you only use those terms in the press room, but El Roquito in the press room, but always the Rocket when he's getting introduced for real.
Indeed. Well, I mean, this has been brilliant, Rob. Really nice to get some time with you, and I think we need to give you time to clear your windows. So let's go on to clearing the colours then. So it's just a series of quick-fire questions, one for each colour as we go through, if you don't mind indulging us on this one.
Yeah.
And you've talked a little bit about the players on tour and their personalities, but who's the funniest player on tour, in your opinion?
Who's the funniest? Selby is quite amusing. I know you're going to find that weird because he tends to get a little bit, most people, they might become more extrovert when they're on camera. He gives he's a little more understated when he's doing his interviews, but he's genuinely really funny. And probably Willow, because he's just got such a Mickey taking personality. He'll come down and he'll just deadpan in the press room. He'll call you a something unrepeatable. Totally dead, like, only because I've known him for such a long time. I usually just tell him to do one, and then he starts laughing. But if you didn't know him, you could sit there and for a split second you could think, "Oh my God, I've upset him." So Willow for his Mickey taking, just brilliant.
And the next question, Rob, it's a green ball question. What's your favourite venue outside the Crucible?
That's a hard one, because in the past I always would have said the Barbican with Ali Pally third, because it's so cold, that venue in North London, so cold, and if you don't come from around there, it's so difficult to get to. But I might say, I might be more inclined to say Ali Pally is second, because in the last couple of years, World Snooker have done an unbelievable job. Like, the ticket sales there are mental. And when you get a busy session, like, remember when Stewart played Ali Carter in the final?
Yeah.
The noise for the walk-on for the second session of that final was absolutely unbelievable, and that was very, very special. It was ironic, wasn't it, because Ronnie pulled out and Ali won. I think he got 100 grand.
Ali got
all those massive paydays he was denied by O'Sullivan, most notably with the two world finals in 08 and 12. I think there was some poetic justice there that Ali ended up making 100 grand at Ronnie's expense. But yeah, I'd probably say Ali Pally would be second, but nowhere compares. Nowhere compares to the Crucible. That venue is just the dogs. There is nowhere that compares to the Cruise. It is just, that whole city breathes snooker for 1 month a year, and it's just brilliant, and it should never ever leave that venue.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I got the next one, the brown ball. So we've had the green and the yellow. Who do you think the player most likely to win their first World Championship will be?
Well, what do you mean? Do you mean this season?
No. So the next player to win the World Championship who hasn't won it before. That's probably a better way of phrasing it.
Yan
Bingtao, right?
Yeah. I think that guy has got such big balls for someone his age. He plays like he's 45 and he's 21. I mean, what was he, 7-5 down against John Higgins in that Masters final? He's beaten Selby twice this season. He's beaten Ronnie. He beat Murphy and Selby in the same day at the Champ of Champs. I really think that you could hit that kid with a brick and he's just going to get up with the same expression and come back at you. I think it will be Yan. His maturity is incredible. He's unflappable. And that, it would seem to me, having covered snooker for sort of 14, 15 years, that it's that mental durability that will help him cope with 17 days of madness.
Yeah.
So Yan Bing Chow.
Well, that's a brown. That's a brown away. So the blue ball question next, Rob. If there was a film made about your life, who would you get to play you?
Oh.
Vicky Blue.
Well, if you were looking for somebody who actually looked like me, you might say Tom Ford. But and not the Chuckle Brothers either, thank you.
Oh dear.
Even though I don't look anything like him, because I just love his films, I'd have to say Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, hang on. Tom Hanks, or if it was going to be a complete wind up and just a total piss take of me, Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah. Good one. Good one. Yeah, I can see that one. Yeah, definitely better than the Chuckles. So the pink, you kind of mentioned a bit again about the players. We sometimes want to know who's the standout nice guy. Is there anybody on the tour you just think, do you know what a blimping nice guy, a blimping nice guy? We've said about the funniest guy, and you've said that most of them you get on with all of them. Who's the nicest player you think you've met? We like nice people.
Listen, if Selby's got to be, if I can't think of one specifically, but Selby's on the list because he is just so genuine. But yeah, I mean, look, I've got a lot of time for Stephen Maguire. Now, I know you might think that's weird because people might think, oh, he's a grumpy Scot, but he's not. You can have some great conversations with Stephen. I like too many of them to I could put it this way. I could sit down in a hotel over breakfast and have a long conversation with almost all of them and have something in common with almost all of them.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but most of them.
Superb.
Okay then, so last question. This is for your highest break, Rob. This is the black ball to clear the table.
All right.
If you wrote an autobiography, what would you call it?
I've already got the title.
Oh.
My wife's. I'm going to do a book, not because I'm not going to do a book because I think people would go, oh, I want to know all about Rob Walker's life. They wouldn't. I'm not high profile enough. But the book I'm going to write, if touch wood, I carry on making a living such as I am, I have been around I have worked on some of the biggest events in the world. I have seen so many different things in broadcasting. No one's really written a book yet that millions and millions of people around Britain watch live sport. It's a huge part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the machine of how TV works is insane. And they would be gobsmacked at some of the decisions, funny, serious, emotional, outrageous. Mm-hmm. The whole way TV broadcasting works is bonkers. Mm-hmm. And the book I'm going to write will almost be, my involvement in it will just be of side note. It will just be, I worked on this event and this guy had to do this and this was said to him. And that, so that's going to be the book I write. It's not specifically going to be about me. It will just use the places I've been and the things I've done to lift the lid on what a crazy, insane environment it is to make a living in. And the title, Becky's already come up with the title, More Than Just a Big Nose. So if I make it to 65 and I'm sitting in a car that is slightly newer than 22-year-old BMW, but I'd quite like to keep this car going until I retire, and then the car can retire with me. Then you can read all about it. But yeah, that's what it's going to be called. More Than Just a Big Nose: The Life of a Journeyman Broadcaster.
Love it. I'd read that. I don't know about you, Lee. I'd read that.
Yeah, definitely.
Lovely. Well, look, I mean, Rob, all we can do now really is just thank you for your time, your generosity, inspiring stuff. And you know, I think for us, just lovely to get a chance to get behind the scenes and learn about somebody else who we see a lot of. And you know, respect to you really, and all the best to the family, to Becky and Arthur. And I hope you have a great time at the UK's at York.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.